Welcome to the World Football Summit podcast, the show for football industry leaders who want to stay ahead of the game. We bring you the latest insights, trends, and stories from the experts driving innovation and progress in sports business worldwide. Join us as we dive deep into the ideas and initiatives transforming the world of football. From sustainability and innovation to player development, fan engagement, and everything in between. Our goal is to unite the global football industry and drive positive change and progress.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the World Football Summit podcast. I'm your host, Jaime, CMO at World Football Summit. Today, I am thrilled to welcome another amazing female leader in football to the show, Aisha Nazia, who is involved with the World Freestyle Football Association and who's also an advocate for technology for a purpose, and was a speaker during our last event in Saudi Arabia, World Football Summit Asia. Aisha and I had a great conversation about the application of different technologies in sports such as Web3, AI. We also talked about how the football industry compares to other industries, about frameworks, the role technology can play in driving positive change through sport. She also had advice for female leaders. This was a very fun conversation that I hope you don't miss. Before we go into it though, don't forget, you can subscribe and rate the podcast on your platform of choice and you share with your industry colleagues. You can also subscribe to our newsletter where every week we send updates, trends, and everything that goes on around events. You can find the link in the show notes. And remember the tickets for events in London, in Mexico, in Sevilla, they're all available on our website. Check it all out. And if you want to meet more companies, more people, clubs that are shaping the new frontiers of football, we'll be happy to welcome you to any or all of these events. Anyway, enjoy this episode and this amazing conversation with Aisha Nazia. Well, Aisha, we spoke about you being on the podcast on World Football Summit Asia, and we're finally making it happen. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jamie. It's finally happening.
Yes, looking forward to it. We're going to talk a lot about technology, and I'm always happy to talk about technology with my guest. But before we do, I always like to ask people, if you can briefly introduce yourself and I guess more importantly, help us understand why. Why do you do what you do? Why your career in sports?
Yeah, this is a question I've tried to answer to myself and to a lot of people who ask me this question because of the different background that I come from. I think sports for me was never the first goal. I always wanted to be an engineer. That was my passion. I was always this nerdy science kid who wanted to develop stuff. And I did take that path. I was a professional engineer. But I think there was a moment where I got this opportunity to interact with the sporting ecosystem at a volunteering level quite early during my engineering days. I think what I saw there in terms of how this industry works and how it is just the only thing in the world that unites people in spite of all the other divisions that we have across the globe. Something about it was so captivating that I couldn't go back and continue working as an engineer with full satisfaction. I decided maybe this is the industry I want to be because I look up to myself as a people's person. And I think this is the place where people actually connect. This is the place where people speak the same language, which is sport. So I think that's my short note on how and why it is sport that I work for.
That's a beautiful way to start. Sports is where people connect, no? And in that sense, how did that transition happen?
Yes. So I think basically, while you work in an engineering setup, right? It's not a new industry. It's traditionally so structured from the beginning of when it started. And words like project management, words like architecture, all exist there. And you just go in there and you plug and play. You don't go with any new information. In my engineering school, I haven't learned anything that is extremely different or extremely out of the box from what my professor would have learned when he did engineering, right? But when I went to sport, I felt the beauty of it is how spontaneous it is because you're going there with zero predictions. You do not know what is the outcome and you do not know what is the kind of problem that you will face. So I felt like it's for someone who's very proactive. The industry is for someone who's there to take accountability and responsibility for what is spontaneous. And I think that's not a usual project management skill or a usual, somebody like a leader skill. Because we in the society have certain set things that have been told to us that this is your standard operating procedures for doing certain things. But when you go to sport, you are just dealing with people. Your client is people. Your fans, which is your consumer, is people. Your product, which is your sport and athletes, is people. And it's all about different kinds of people. And we are all unique. So each of the person or each of the entity of the 50,000 or the 100,000 that you're talking about is a unique person. And then you're curating something at global level to not, I don't want to use the word satisfy, but to give the best and optimal output that fits everybody's need. So I think that fascinates me, and having the opportunity to work for that to enhance that overall experience, be it a staff, be it a worker, be it the athlete, or be it a fan sitting at home and watching it live, is what's so amazing about this.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, about the unpredictability of sport, the uniqueness, the unique moments. I think sport also not only it's compounded of built with unique people, but unique moments that actually create the best memories. No. But anyway, let's not digress here. Aisha, we're going to talk about technology and the application of technology in sport, as we said at the beginning, and everybody is talking about this. What is the role of technology? How is it going to impact? But I want to ask you, if we go to the core of it, um, what do you think is the true role that technology should play in sports?
Yeah, I think for me, like technology anywhere across any industry is a tool. Like we stop looking at it as a word. It is clearly a tool that is used to enhance what you're doing. Because traditionally, we've been doing things in certain ways which didn't have internet or which didn't have cables going across, which didn't have any information passing through the air or the cloud. So we have been doing things, and we've been doing this for a long time in the history of everything that we do. What happened with technology or what happened with information is the increased capability of connectivity and the increased efficiency that we can bring to our existing setup. So for me, technology is just a tool. Now, irrespective of which industry you use it, it is to enhance what you do. It's neither to compete with you, it's neither to eliminate you, or it's neither to give you an alternate to what you're doing. It's just enhancing what you do. And for me, technology, especially in sport, is I look at sport in two ways. One, sport is something that enhances a community. One, sport is something that is entertaining and it's like a leisure. And I think this varies from world to world. When you look at American sport, it looks very flashy, entertaining, and all that, like it's show business. But when you go to the UK or when you go to Europe, they consider sport as a community tool or grassroots. That's how it develops. So I think across the world, the way people look at sport is different. But at the end of the day, when you deliver something as an ecosystem or as an industry, you still need technology. Because if every other industry has adopted technology for its right benefit, sport has to adopt it as well. But the only problem here was why all the other industries had a gradual transitioning, be it the schools that we studied, we had floppy disks, then we went to CDs, then we went to hard drives, now we use cloud. The sport never had that transition. Nobody thought of bringing technology into sport until a long time, maybe because how it's traditionally handled. And then suddenly, when all the buzzwords were popping up in the industry, people just said, oh, let's plug in technology without having a customized plan for sport. Because, like I explained before, sport is very unique. And what you do at sporting events is very unique from any other event or industry that you work with. Because I do not know of any industry where everything is human beings. So I think for us, what is important is to look at technology to enhance what we are doing, not to plug and play what is existing.
I like that word, enhance. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, at the end of the day, it's either going to help you become or drive greater revenue or be more efficient, reduce cost, whatever. No? But also, I think, when we talk about sports, one of the key themes is how can sports properties connect better with their fans at the end of the day to drive growth. No? So in that sense, I don't know if you have examples of mind of how technology can actually enhance that relationship between the sport property and the fans.
Yeah, I think that's the second part of what technology can do, which is it can eliminate differences. It can eliminate what brings divisions in our system. As a society, we are a combination of a lot of things. And not all of us are privileged in the same way. Not all of us have the same kind of opportunity. And because the sporting industry is becoming like a consumer focused industry, to put it that way, there's also a lot of financial entities attached to it. So, how do you then make sure that you reach to the billions and not to a very small user group? Because if you're going to get stuck with a very small user group, you might be financially benefited, but are you growing? Does the world know what is happening? Is the right fans who might not be able to reach there because of geographical reasons, because of financial reasons, because of logistical reasons, how are you catering to them? Because they might be your hardcore or super fans, or just ensuring that there is no division, just ensuring that there is inclusion. So we keep talking about diversity, inclusion in the context of work culture and things like that. But why not when it comes to fans? And that is exactly where you can use digital enhancements. That's exactly where you can use technology to ensure that if I'm in my home or if I'm someone who's in a hospital bed and I cannot make it to an event, I get almost close to similar experience back in my home, not in terms of just broadcast, because broadcast is not rocket science. It's been happening for some time, but in terms of how I interact with the sport. So I think it's enhancement, but it's also making things inclusive as well.
Agree. And now that you're speaking about that, and you were mentioning how sport is unique, no? To me, one of the unique elements that defines sports versus other forms of entertainment is the experience at the stadium, no? It's a live experience. So I'm just thinking, from your point of view, how can technology and perhaps which ones enhance that experience for fans, which at the end of the day should help drive growth, which is what you alluded to before, no?
Yeah, I think when we talk about stadium, like the experience that you have in a stadium or the experience that you have in any venue, irrespective of what the sport is, right? The sport could be sailing, the sport could be motorsports, the sport could be, I don't know, golf, tennis. Like the arena or the venue limits the capacity because we do not have spaces that can facilitate everybody who likes the sport. So the physical space has always been a constraint to us. And I think not just sport, you take any example, you have a birthday party, you have a limitation of how many people you invite depending on the size of your venue. If you're doing it at home, you keep it small. If you move from home to a hotel, you keep it bigger. From a hotel to a destination, you make it bigger. So even with sport, yes, we have gone to big numbers like 55,000 or 100,000, but still there is a limitation. And it's also the second thing, which is what is your eye range? What is your visibility? Let's say someone builds a stadium which can fit 1 million people, like imagination. What is that he or she would see sitting in that stadium onto the field of play? And even then, you'll have to attach technology there for the furthest person to actually see what's in there. So then, for that furthest person, though he or she feels the enhancement or the excitement or the immersiveness of what you create as a venue. These days, we have a lot of virtual reality boards that you can create, which can actually give me exactly what I feel back in a stadium, but back at home. Now, if I had to choose watching a movie in a theater or watching a movie in Netflix in my house, always my first option would be watching it in a cinema. But I think it also defines of who I am because I'm a unique person out of the billions that you're catering to, and it's giving me multiple options to choose from. What currently happens is either you come to the venue or then you miss out. That's how we look at it. But I think we have to move from that and see how we can recreate these engagements. Now, you do not have to go as far as virtual reality, right? Maybe you have digital fan engagement solutions that even fans on the grandstands or fans in the stadium use, but you also use it on the same app to vote alongside them. So you are a combination of offline and online fans participating in a digital enhancement or digital activation, then contributing to the larger output of how fans immerse together at the venue. And then you see this back in broadcast. So it's like a circular loop. So offline and online comes together and then it goes back to the venue and then comes back on television, which the offline person can see again. So I feel like it's about how you look at this overall journey and how much effort you put in to actually do it for the purpose of enhancement and not do it to tick boxes.
You know, your answer reminded me of a conversation I had with another female leader in football, Patricia Piro. She works as she's chief strategy officer at Telecom. And we were talking about how, yeah, technology is great. At the end of the day, it's the context that's going to help define the success of a given technology, which I think is what you alluded to there. Everybody is going to have their own unique context, and they're going to appreciate the technology one way or the other. And to your point about limited capacity, this is something that I also discussed with Michael Broughton, and we were discussing how the traditional sports business model needs to, it's a bit outdated because of what you said. The stadium capacity is limited. So how can you expand beyond that? And many have alluded to, you said it, virtual reality, augmented reality, other Web3 related technologies as a way to, surpass that challenge, let's say, which kind of is a good segue to something that I wanted to discuss with you, which is the impact of given technologies in football, starting with Web3. But if we go back to 2022, it was a very bad year for everything related to Web3. What happened there? Why there was so much hype? It didn't live up to the expectations. What do you think happened there?
Yeah, I think, again on that point, like when we talk about virtual reality or any of those things, we have to always think about how expensive certain equipments or certain technology is. So when they say, oh, we're creating virtual experience for fans back at home, they are back at home because they couldn't afford to make it to the actual venue, and you're making it more expensive for them to acquire these additional tools that you need to actually look into something that you built for them. So this is exactly where context plays the role, right? Because you just developed something without having context or understanding or even studying your fans. I think it all starts with data. How are you studying your fans? How are you gauging what they need? Are you gauging the needs of all categories of your fan? And this is where, again, when you said Web3, what it does is, let's look at Web3 as social media, for example. Social media was the big boom a decade ago. And what happened when social media became the boom? The best part of social media was it was accessible to anyone. You didn't have to pay to be on Facebook. You didn't have to pay to be on Instagram. And you had all the same features that everybody gets, unless you opt for something which is enterprise, and it's a whole different story. But otherwise, as a general public, you have the same thing that someone else has. You have the same capability to become popular as someone else has. You have the same capability to post videos and audio that someone else has. So I think that is where social media was super clear. It came out there, said, we are taking off the big barrier. We are not going to send messages using pigeons if you have pigeons, using cars if you have cars, using helicopters if you have helicopters, but you're all going to send it through one single channel as long as you have a smartphone and access to internet, which was growing at its own pace. So there was a discrepancy between developed countries, developing countries, and underdeveloped countries, but still that disparity eased over a decade. Now, what happened exactly with Web3 was Web3 just got in like out of nowhere. It just fell off Mars. And then people tried fitting into everywhere without even understanding what Web3 is. A lot of people do not even have the understanding this Web3 is as open as social media. The reason why Web3 got popular in the tech industry where it didn't fail and failed in every other cross-functional industry is because nobody other than the technologists or developers or people from IT background really understood what Web3 is. People made it sound very alienated. People made it sound like it's something that you need to have 5 courses to use on. It's something that's only meant for people who are like super techies. No, it is not. Just look at it as social media. It's something where you, I, anybody in the world has the same access to items. And it also gives the idea that I do not have to physically be in a place, and which is exactly what social media did, or Zoom, or FaceTime, or any of these tools did. I do not have to be in a country with someone right across a table to have a conversation. I jump on an online meeting. Now, bridging that gap of understanding is where we fail. Whoever brought this thing or brought this like word, Web3, any of this, blockchain, used all these jargons and brought that into the industry, never explained to people what is the basic, for what is the foundation of it. People just jumped into NFT. NFT is like level 10 on Web3. First, you have to understand what Web3 is, how is it functioning, what is the background, where is it operating, is it a computer, is it a platform, is it on the cloud, is it somewhere else? What happens if energy just cuts out one day and we are all in darkness? Nobody did that information transfer in the right way. There is information on the internet. It's written in the form that only someone from the tech industry could read it. Nobody wrote it for laymen. And even when all these people in decision-making positions tried to plug and play due to the pressure they had from the tech industry saying, oh, sports is big, sports is money, plug it in, they never questioned the solution. and they never asked why an NFT. And NFT was like the buzzword everywhere. Every sport adopted to NFT. Every sport adopted to a token that works exclusively for them. But they never thought of what is the longevity of it. What does the token do later? So, like everybody tried plugging in NFT as like the one-time solution or the first solution, but that wasn't the first solution. It was to ensure that you understand if even 80% of your fans are using Web3 solutions. So, like, even if you look at Premier League, for example, there's a big fan chunk in the UK. But what we understand from stats and what we read on the internet is majority of Premier League fans are based in other countries, especially in Asian continent. Now, do those people have access to Web3? Did you check on that? Because if you're living in the UK, you're pretty much most optimally inside the stadium. So then Web3 is not going to enhance your people. Web3 is being used to enhance someone else. So, and when you talk about NFT, is the audience ready for it? Are they ready to store this? I buy an NFT. Where do I store it? I cannot store it on your website or on your, chain. So nobody gave information rather than just telling people, okay, someone, Snoop Dogg bought something for 400,000, just buy it because you want to feel elite. This is like how ultra luxurious brand sell things to middle class people by telling that this is what rich people do, and then that pulls the middle class to buy it, not knowing, do I really need this? Or do I know that if I buy a shoe which is 20,000 pounds, I need the cleaning service, which is 500 pounds. So, like that gap really made it bad for us in sport. Now, if you look at outside of sport, what happened in 2020, for me, is like stock market. It's a bull run. How you engage with it and how you make the decisions depends on how you enhance it. I was also someone in that space. I'm still someone in that space. Did I have loss? Was there like indefinity? Was there a lot of confusion, lack of clarity? Yes, because it's new. When I first started using Facebook or Instagram, I didn't know a lot of features. I ended up posting the wrong things in the wrong style. I didn't know what the ratio was, and it's a learning curve. And for me, I take those as my learning curve to do better there and to understand what is my best options and to eliminate risk. And I think this is basics. You go to a new place, you do your own visual observation of, is there a hole I will fall into? And if there is a hole and that's the only way to cross, I look at how are the ways I can patch that hole to move across. So I think for me, like the adaptation to sport wasn't the most, I don't even want to say ideal, but it was not even close to doing the exact thing that was the need. We just did it because everybody did it. And who was everybody? Nobody knew who started the trend. It was just another industry pushing another industry, understanding that there is financial opportunity, and that's it.
That is something that I discussed with Aisha on the show a couple of weeks ago. How the problem was that there was kind of a rush to monetize from Web3 technology without really understanding, and more importantly, without bringing the fan at all to help them understand what it could provide them. So that kind of caused that level of mistrust. But when you look at clubs like Manchester United, what they're doing is they're actually making it easier for their fans to adopt their technology. They're launching stuff for free. They're just testing it out, and I think that's key, and that's what's going to kind of like set apart the winners from the losers in the space, as with any new technology. So, from your point of view, I guess, is that what needs to be true for everything related to Web3 to be successful in football? Meaning, is engagement, bringing the fan along, educating, is that what needs to happen before we talk about a successful implementation of Web3 in football?
Yes, I absolutely think that is what needs to happen. I think it needs to start from the top. If you look at any technology enhancements, I'm trying to generalize this because it's not just Web3. A lot of technology enhancement has failed in the sporting industry. It comes with a boom, and then after a few years, you never hear about it. The first problem is anybody who's at decision making completely relies on your external party who has no clue about how sports work. Until I was an engineer, I had no clue about how the internal setup of a sporting ecosystem works, or how your structure is, or what happens when you run a football match, or what happens on a day to day basis, what happens in planning phase. Now, because you do not have an in house expert who can make the right questions back to your external or third party provider, you often just nod your head to anything that they sell you. It's like I've never used a product. I walk in and a great sales agent just sells a product to me and I buy it. Now, I'm not able to question back why because I do not have the information, even basics, to question back that. And then, in order to question back that, we bring experts from PwC or the big names in the world who still have no clue about what's happening in sport. So, it's important to get people within the ecosystem who's like in house to then ask the right question to the people who are selling these solutions to you. And this is with any technology. And then, like you said, testing is very important. It's like trying a dress in a dressing room. You do not just walk in and buy something unless you have bought it before you walk with it out. But then you always want to try it on. Now, what the example that you told about Manchester United is they're trying it. Now, that trying experiment is going to tell them whether the money that they're going to spend on this has an ROI or not. Because, yes, it might be free of cost that they're doing it now, but it's part of their longer strategy. You're spending it now to understand how it will work later. And this is also a good way to understand your fan. Where is your fan? Which category of people is your fan? Or what kind of technology are they using? Are they happy with just social media and fan, very like, web based fan engagement that you're doing? Or are they people who really want to enhance their experience because they have gone past the technology that you're using and they have to rewind and come back 10 steps to interact with you, which is very time consuming. So they might as well skip you here. That's one thing. Now, the second thing what Web3 does for me is one, it decentralizes. It gives me a part in what you do. So for that, I would take the case of Lewis FC. If not Web3, you have a voting system there. I buy a ownership for £50. It's something not just me, I think majority of people can afford at this age and time. What do I get? I get to be part of massive decision making that happens in a club where I feel I can contribute my suggestion. So people look at voting in a very democratic, traditional way. It is not. It is different people coming from different experience, different exposure, and different backgrounds trying to give their say. And it's up to you at the other end to gauge it. Now, Web3, if this moved into Web3, it's beautiful because you are giving data from, say, I don't know, 200,000 owners that the club has, them explaining their pros and cons to a decision making, and then that tool analyzes it in a best way. Now, people question about is an AI tool emotionally attached to something? I think in any strategic meetings that I have been in my life, emotions are the last thing that come when you are in the last bit of your decision making. Until then, people use all sorts of project management terminologies and methodologies which has zero emotion in it. Emotion only comes in the selling part because that's when you talk to your fan. Until you talk to your fan, everything is made without emotion. So if you can do that using all these, I don't know, Six Sigmas and whatever you call it, you can actually do it using this technology as well. And the third thing, what happens with football specifically is football doesn't happen in one place. Look at the World Cup. We go from continent to continent to continent. Let's say we move to a blockchain based currency. I can go to a World Cup in Russia. I can use my same wallet, go to a World Cup in Qatar. I can use my same wallet, go to a World Cup in USA. I can use my same wallet, go to another country, wherever you're taking me. You're actually making life easy for a fan. Because as you move your countries or continents for your marketing need and for your financial gains, you are not looking at what the fans are benefited or what are their problems having to go through that. So we are trying to unify this experience. If I have a wallet system, all of us use wallet systems these days, which is where the retail industry is flourishing like anything. You get a card, you can use this in multiple avenues. That's the most popular card in the city. Why? Because it gives you access to multiple things without having to think about exchange of currencies, without having to deal with the most complex economic ecostructure that we work with, and without having to worry about all of this because you're here to enjoy the sport. And the good thing is only sport can do this because you are connected to every entity. You are connected to MasterCard and Visa. You are connected to these governments that you operate in this country with. You are connected to the larger ecosystem of financial ecostructure. You are the people who can do this, and you are the people who should do this. So, like, I feel like if sport adapts Web3, blockchain, and that area in the right way, they can be the right example for all the other industry to even understand how to use it with people.
Said something there that was beautiful. Actually, you said something like football happens in many places at once. No, I think that's the uniqueness of sport. That live action has impact across many fans around the world. And I guess the role of technology there is to enhance those emotions, enhance that relationship. You also mentioned artificial intelligence, and we're speaking about technology. Obviously, we cannot speaking about AI in today's world. And you said, or you kind of alluded there, that one of the benefits of AI is to help sport properties analyze their data of their fans to actually develop more tailored solutions for them, whether it's technology or not. I mean, technology based or not. What other? I mean, there are many. But where would you say AI has the potential to impact football the most, from your point of view?
Yeah, I think for me, AI is something that you create. I often tell this to people, and this is in any context, right? Why would I fear my own position or my own self if I'm the one controlling it? So for me, AI is that what people have to basically understand is without any information that you feed, it could be wrong or right, which is another question. AI doesn't create something. AI cannot create something which it doesn't have information about. AI is like a empty box. What you put in it is what it gives. It analyzes, it does whatever you give at the back end, but it cannot tell you something that you didn't tell the AI. And the best example for this is using Chat GPT or using any of these tools that exist today, right? Mid Journey or any of that. They create things for you based on what you tell them. And you can actually even try this in the best possible way. You ask for a prompt and they give you an answer and you tell them, oh, I don't want this out of it. They remove that. I want this out of it. They add that. So they exactly work. It's like a mouse. Just look at AI as a mouse. The mouse doesn't move on its own and click, right? Like it doesn't. It will never. And AI is exactly that. And when people look at AI as something that's damaging, something that can interrupt you, it's because wrong people in wrong feed to the AI system. And why are they giving the wrong feed here? I do not want to call it wrong. They give the inappropriate information, which confuses the system because the system never lived a fan experience in the stadium or the system never saw in real what happened. It's like reading a book. I can only know what the author wrote based on what I read, based on what he has written. So for me, AI is exactly that. Now, how it can enhance football is that most of the time we spend a lot of time trying to create something that fits everyone. And I think it's high time we get out of that because not everyone is same. This is something that is like a campaign in any industry. And not everyone has the same access to things. Now there's so many disparities around us that and it's always the sad way. If you are in the lower part of the disparity spectrum, your your opportunity or your spectrum of opportunities are much lesser than people who are in the higher spectrum. It technically should work the other way around, which is if I am in a most difficult situation, I need more help than someone who's not in any problem, right? But for some weird reasons in the world that we live, it's the other way around. Now, what AI could do is actually eliminate that disparity. And if you go back to when we had the World Football Summit here in Jeddah, I remember us showing this video of Messi, right? It will take me at least months or years of effort and time to learn the language that someone's favorite football star speaks, and vice versa. You cannot expect Messi to talk English because he actually doesn't need English to play football. And he can communicate in the right way with the right emotions, with the right information in his language. Now, how can I understand what he is saying in real time? Because you talk about translators, then you talk about, oh, we have verified people, authorized wording. But all this takes time because someone has to listen and someone's normal human brain has to interpret that. And if even if I'm the best translator in the world, if he used a very colloquial word that he only uses, how does this translator know? Otherwise, you have to attach one translator each to one person, which is impossible. Then you create 7 more billion people. So then the solution is AI because AI during its free time, leisure time, can listen to everything that Messi has spoken over the decade and ever since he's come on media and understand a pattern in his conversation to give us the most optimal results. There is no perfection here. And there is no perfection even if it's a translator, right? Two translators would translate the same sentence in two different ways. And we all know this based on the brief that they receive. How you translate at UN is going to be different of how you translate something in a gaming arena. It's going to be different from how you translate something at a wedding, but the sentence would be same. So I think that is where AI can enhance things.
And to your point, I mean, you're mentioning how technology can be applied differently across different sectors. But what about within sports? Because there's so many different sports out there, many different natures, I mean, just for example, look at the difference between team sports and individual sports. I'm just, thinking out loud here. Um, is the application of technology similar across sports, or does it have to be specific to each one? Or is it a solution that can be applied across all of them? If that's the case, it has to be individual to each one.
Yeah, I think the application of technology in sport and non-sport is different. So that's where we start. You cannot take an existing technology in the industry, which is used by consumer brands, which is used by fashion industry, which is used by food and beverage industry, or which is used by engineering industry, and plug it into sport. That will never work. But within sport, even if it's individual sport, even if it's team sport, even if it's a sport that happens in the water versus land versus air, the sport in itself has a very similar pattern. There is an athlete, there is a sport, there is a set of umpires or commissioners or referees, whoever you call it. The wording changes from sport to sport. Then they are the decision makers in terms of technicality of the sport. Then there is a set of people who enhance this experience, which is people who operate the event. They are event planners, event strategists, events, let's call it that way. And then there is your fans, there is your clients, which is your sponsors, and then how you connect all of this. Now, this, at least with my experience working across multiple sports, my answer to this is same. The terminology that you use is different. The timing of your sport might be different. The equipments that you use to engage in the sport might be different, but the structure is the same. You look at sailing that happens in a sea, to Dakar, which happens in the desert, to football that happens in a pitch, to a chess competition that happens inside a room. The entities that you interact with is exactly same. So if you can create a customized solution to match these entities, then you can plug and play it anywhere in sport. The problem here is there is no one who's building it for sport. People are bringing existing technology and trying to plug it into sport, not understanding why sport is different. And the biggest thing is the people who are bringing this technology do not work in the inside of sport, and the people who work inside of sport do not understand technology. So this is where, we have solutions, but we are not bridging the gap and we are not talking to each other because your terminology in the world of technology is so different and our terminology in the actual sport is so different that a developer will never make sense even if he speaks to the highest level of project manager who has the overall aerial view of an event because he's never going to understand what we say. It could be with small terminology to massive decision making that you do in a sport, right? So I think for me, bringing technology that exists in the world and plugging into sport is a no-no. And I think it's a no-no anywhere. But taking all the existing technologies to connect these entities and developing something for it will work everywhere. So it is the same across the sport because all the elements that I mentioned is exact copy paste. How you call it differs, but it's the same.
I guess what changes again is the context in a way, though. So just what we were mentioning before. And I'm just thinking, we met in the context of World Football Summit Asia. You were participating in a panel thanks to your involvement with the World Freestyle Football Association. I'm thinking we can go into a real example of how the organizations benefits most from the implementation of technology. I don't know if you can share some examples there.
Yeah, sure. So our federation is very young. When I say very young, it's as young as 10 years old, right? And we are trying to be alongside federations that has existed for 100 plus years, which means they're 10 times more bigger than us. But if you look at who we cater to more than 10 times more athletes than any other sport. You look at FIFA's registry, you look at FIBA's registry, or you look at any sport and the athletes that they have versus the athletes we have, we cater to anyone. And then we use sport as both the things. We use the American ideology, we use the European ideology. We use freestyle as a tool for our federation. What the beauty is that we connect to people with both ideologies. One is the professional sport, where it's about competition, where it's about skill, where it's about challenges. But at the same time, we also connect to the world. When I say world, we say it's one world, one ball. All you need is a ball. And it's not just for grassroots development. It's not just for kids. It's not just for people who are interested in sport. It's for anyone. You could be Elon Musk, and if I give you a ball and I tell you that every day try juggling for like 10 minutes or like even 2 minutes, he can do it in his office. He doesn't have to go anywhere. And how do you want to learn the tricks? It's on the internet, it's on our YouTube channel. So, our first solution or our first way of looking at this is to bring accessibility. When I say accessibility, we wanted to develop, I mean, the founders of our organization wanted to develop a sport that can fit all. And then we achieved it because this sport can actually fit all. All you need is a football, which is not an expensive item anymore. It's easily available. It's available in the kind of category or setup that you want. And it's something that you can carry. So, and it's something that you can do at your pace. Now, this is where most other sport makes it difficult due to problems in physical space, due to the acquiring time and process of the equipment. And if it's team sport, due to the lack of finding the right set of people to experience the sport. Now, we eliminated all the three in a go. Our equipment is not difficult. You do not need to be in a physical space at a time to engage in the sport. And you do not need team members or an opponent to actually practice. You are your own opponent. The more you try a trick, the more you get better from what you did a minute ago. And where can you find all this information? You do not need a coach because it's the ergonomic of your body. So, how one freestyle athlete does the same trick is very different from how another athlete does the same trick. The muscles that they use might be same, but the style that they take is so unique to their body. And it doesn't matter whether you are tall or whether you are short, whether you have to be with limited size, or like these are the restrictions that other kind of sports bring into. But here, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what any of these differences are, but you can engage in the same sport and you can actually try the same trick. And the beauty of our athlete pool is that we have everyone. We have a child who's 7 year old. We have someone who's 65 years old. We have someone who is specially abled. We have someone who is visually impaired. We have someone who is having certain other, conditions. And we also have people who are like bodybuilders, who are like professional athletes who are doing this for retirement. And I think that is where the first thing is, which is we never had physical constraints. We were always digital. And why we were able to achieve this? Because we came up in the era of internet. I think if any other sport happened to start in this era, they would be the same as well. And you can actually see this with tech ball, with paddle. I know a lot of new age sport which follow the very similar format where it's very plug and play and it's across the world. And the popularity these kind of sports achieve in very short time actually beats what traditional sport has achieved in 100 years. And the only difference is we were born in the era of internet and we tried going online. We tried using YouTube. Even before Web3, AI, let's forget all of this because these are expensive tools. But if you just look at internet and YouTube, that's where we capitalize. And proudly, I can say that COVID never affected us because we could run our world championships on YouTube, on Instagram, on live platforms like Zoom, because our judges were sitting in their couches and our athletes set up a small stage in their homes and they just did the tricks live and we gauged it in the same way we would do in an arena. So I think we were fortunate enough to be existing in the right decade, but we are also fortunate because we had the right ideology. Our primary key focus is how can this sport enhance people's life? How can the sport be entertaining? Which is why like brands like Red Bull, etc., are interested in this because it's an adrenaline rush. It's a lot of a thrill to see what you can do with your own body because we are not using anything else except a ball and a body, which is yourself. So I think we were able to like bring these elements together. And I think every sport can bring these elements together if you start thinking from that perspective.
I like that answer because it's a perfect way to summarize many of the things you've talked before. First, I think you're mentioning the athletes and how technology eliminates the differences between the athletes. It is true before you were mentioning probably it eliminates differences with fans, but in your case, it eliminates differences between the athletes. But also, it enhances the relationship with all the fans that you have around the world. You were able to connect with them, even in a time when the sports industry overall was going through suffering a massive impact. So thank you for that. And overall, thank you for the conversation, Aisha. I mean, it's been fun, but and this overview of how technology can impact sport. If I may, I'm going to shift a little bit the sort of the conversation. I'm going to ask about a different set of things, rapid fire questions, if you will, because to me, also, we've discussed this before, technology can also be an advocate for purpose, driving positive change, and going beyond the impact for sport itself. So I'm wondering if you can go into further detail, if you have some examples in mind.
Yeah, I think, yes, I totally agree to that, which is there is a lot of purpose. And I think it's when you combine purpose with financial outcomes is when you can achieve what is a good product, right? And here you meant purpose in a social impact context. But even you can look at purpose in a very usual day-to-day life, right? Why would I buy a pair of pants? Because there is a purpose. And then obviously there is a commercial alignment to the brand or to my need or to my financial capability of which pair of pants to buy. Now, this is exactly what it comes to sport. My purpose is social development. My purpose is communal harmony. My purpose is to bring people together. Now, as long as this is the purpose, you are actually trying to achieve a lot of things in this. Why do people, I often ask this in interviews that I do. I always believed that if someone is involved in some sport at some point of their life, either they played it at professional level or they played it with their parents and siblings in the backyard, if they have exposure to any sport, now it could be anything, the way they think is very different because the sport in itself enables you to think differently from what you are so used to. Because in a sport, there's always winning and there's always losing. There is no other entity or there is no other setup in the world which teaches you this in the best way because you would never see someone not play the sport again because you lost the match today. Now, I'm saying this in a very not a professional setup, very casual, very communal setup. I would always go back and play football every evening, or I would always go back and play badminton with my friends every day, irrespective of what it does to me. So that's one. And the second thing is about how you keep your body. Like your body has to have some kind of care. Medicines, enhancements, all these things are supplements. How can you keep your body in its best form is like how you breathe. You need air to breathe. What does your body need? Your body needs movement. And what is outdoor sports known for? It's known for movement. Now, there is a lot of indoor sports. Yes, indoor sports is for your brain. It gives you the adrenaline rush. It gives you the feeling of winning something. It gives you the push by sitting in a seat, right? It could be chess, it could be motorsport, it could be playing fantasy football. But sport actually feeds both. It feeds your brain and it also feeds your body. And it's the most easiest form of exercise with utmost efficiency. This is what I believe. Because if I have to go to a gym, I'm cutting my routine and going and doing something where I'm alone, doing something by myself with a trainer instructing me. The beauty of sport is it's social, so there's social interaction. It helps you learn on how to engage with others because you're engaging with 10 other people who are not people you know. And like it is also like a space where you're moving. Like movement is very important. These days, there's a lot of stats about how people are becoming very claustrophobic. Why? Because they lack movement in their day-to-day like setup, that we are developing issues like ADHD, claustrophobia. The amount of times we hear these words in our generation is so much high. I never heard of the generation before say about this. Because going to a park or going out or doing these things was very common. They didn't have the internet, they didn't have social media. So our parents ended up going and playing cricket or ended up going and playing football, even if they didn't have the right equipment or the right playing field. So I think for me, purpose is that. And what also technology does is giving the right skills to learn and leverage. Because that is what didn't exist before technology didn't exist. If I'm born in India, if you were born in Spain, if someone else was born in USA, the access of information for me to understand what I need to do was very different. Because my educational system, which caters to 1 billion people in India, would take 10 years to get to the position where American universities are. But how does it help me to get to there to run leagues in India at the same pace as America is the learning and leveraging opportunity that internet or just technology gives me. So I think for me, that is also purpose, which is co-learning or pure learning. There's co-teaching and there's co-learning. This happens only because technology exists. Because physically, for me to take a flight and go to America or Europe or come back and then implement something there or even bring an expert from there, is a lot of unsustainable means of doing it. But technology actually enhances that. And I think it, again, going back, it eliminates disparity.
That was a masterclass on purpose because you touched about so many things, and I couldn't agree more. At the end of the day, sport, in a way, can unify people and transcend the actual outcome. And it's beautiful what you said there, at the beginning. Regardless of winning or losing, it's that connection with people that makes you come back to the sport.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something unique. No? So thank you for that, Aisha. It made me really think a lot about the sports role in society. Now I'm wondering also if you could give any form of advice to other female industry leaders or just women who are starting off their career in the sports industry and want to develop a successful career in sports. What advice would you have? I mean, just imagine you could put out, let's say, a billboard out there, all the women in the world could see it. What would it say?
Yeah, I think the billboard would say the struggle is real, but the struggle can differ in the way you navigate. How I navigate would be different from how another woman navigates. And most of the time, it depends on who you are and what you portray to the people next around you. I often tell this now specifically because sport, and that's what we are discussing today. If I was an American or a European man, I would have been at a different stage in life from where I am today. If I was a European/American woman, I would have been in the second stage below that. If I was just a man, I would have been in the third stage. And if I was just a woman of color, I am in a stage where it's very different. Now, these disparities was not created by sport. What we have to understand is often we go into sport and we expect sport to change because sport has brought a lot of people of different races and cultures together, and we get frustrated over it. But when you actually open your eyes and look around you, this exists everywhere. Why it has become so visible or why is it become so questionable is because in sport, we deal with a lot of emotions. If you go into the big fours or an IT firm, you will see the same structure there, but you do not question because you don't see people quite often. You're working in systems, you meet them for meetings, or you're busy developing things in your computers or in your civil sites or structures that you don't see that often. But at sport, because again, every human entity is a person, you see this happening across. And people are trying their best to eliminate this. But again, it's gradual. It's not a push button where I press something and it says, from tomorrow on, the world will be run by women. And we do not want that as well. Because when you talk about equality, what often people forget is it can't be one-sided equality, right? Like the word has to have its true essence. And I think it's also because people have to take it slow. And people have to give the opportunity for someone who's so socially conditioned to come out of that conditioning. Now, whether they choose to come out of it or not is their choice. Whether you fight every day is your choice. Because even fighting every day is not a nice thing to do. Nobody wants to wake up in the morning and say, oh my God, I have to go to work today and prove myself. No, and I think most women in sport get tired of this fact that you have to go to work and you have to prove yourself. You have to ensure that being a woman doesn't matter. Going on maternity leave doesn't make you smaller. Your sporting ecosystem being a very physical venue with weather and temperature and high working conditions and long tenure of work and lack of time, personal time doesn't affect a woman. Because I come from an industry which is mechanical engineering, which is worse than this. When I first went to my mechanical engineering office, they didn't have a woman's toilet. So I'm coming from there to an industry which is more acceptable. But the way we fight here is I want to fight in the positive sense. I do not want to prove myself. I just want to do my work and then see how my society then helps me. I want my colleagues to do the work for me, not me. Because if I'm the one fighting every day, I would be tired. But imagine if my ecosystem around me, like my reporting managers, my colleagues, my people, if they give the right vibe that it doesn't matter if I'm a woman or a man, things are working. That is which enhances decision makers to think. And if I'm the only person going and protesting every day, it's just negative loop of impact because everybody else is doing their business, not giving any, they're not bothered. They're just doing their stuff and going home. And I'm the only person standing in the middle of the room and doing this. And this is often how women are portrayed as well. So I feel like the change is communal. I don't want to wake up every day and tell people that me being a woman is a problem. No, I want the people around me, which includes includes both women and men in positions of power, in positions of places where they are more privileged than someone else, to talk for me. And for me, I think it's allyship that we need, not protest, because I do not want to protest the system because it's social conditioning that's existed for 100 plus years in work culture across industries. So I think I would say the struggle is real, but let's, like how we talk about technology, right? I want to bring back that. Let's use the people around us who see what we actually do, who see our output to enhance our experience and not us fighting for it every day. So I think it's like it's your style. It's like it's each person has a style of how to navigate through this. And it takes a lot of observation. It takes a lot of understanding your counterpart as well. Often we go there with our closed mindset and we expect them to fit into our needs. No, it's a midway. You fit into their needs and then you understand why they think so. And then you try to develop a strategy to convince them of why coming to mid grounds is best for them and us. So yeah.
Empathy. Such a great quality. And unfortunately, it's somewhat lacking in society, probably. I think that's what you're trying to get at.
Yep.
And I want to thank you for that answer. I think it was beautiful because, yes, the struggle is real. But at the end of the day, it's up to us really to really, yeah, it's our decision to really how do we, face those challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And also it's about, not one versus the other. It's how do we complement each other to
Exactly.
achieve a greater good, right? Aisha, this has been a very fun conversation and I want to be respectful of your time. I just have one more question that I really need to ask you because, it begs the question with everything that we discussed just now. As you know, we launched the rebrand at World Football Summit. We believe in a football industry that needs to embrace innovation, commit to excellence, to embrace sustainability. And that means sustainability across its three pillars, financial, social, environmental. And we summarize that under a claim that says the football we want, the football we need. And I'm wondering if you could define very briefly in 1, 2 sentences the football you want or the football you need, how would you do it?
I think the football I want is football for all. And the football I need is a football where I feel home.
Wow. I'm just letting that sink in because that was very powerful. Football for all and football where I feel home. No? That's such a great answer. And overall, a great way to end this fantastic conversation. Before we go, is there anything else I want to share with the audience? Either of you want to share where can people learn more about you, about the work that you do? Feel free. The floor is yours.
I think I do not have much, but I would really love people working in sport to be super proud and super appreciative of themselves to what they contribute in the larger context. Because you might be hired for a role which just says you are the venue operations manager of a stadium or of something. But what they have to understand is the little things that they do on day-to-day basis accounts to a massive impact in the society, in the lives of these athletes, in the lives of the fans. And what I want to tell people who do not work in the sporting industry and look up to us, we are not superheroes. We have our own fair share of struggles. Our industry looks very fancy on the internet, but once you are in, it's as difficult as any other job. And it's as engaging as any other job as well. So we are not like, it's not like entertainment business is conceived. Yes, we are fancy, we are nice from the outside, but we actually work as much as any other industry. So I think I just wanted to throw it out there so that people actually understand the larger outcome that we create out of these events, like not just from what you see on the television.
Fantastic. Couldn't agree more. Aisha, thank you. This has been, I had high expectations and it definitely over delivered. I want to thank you. Thank you for your time. And yeah, you're welcome back anytime. And we can keep discussing how technology keeps impacting sports.
Thank you, Jamie. It's been really nice. And I've always been part of the World Football Summit family. And I actually wish you guys a lot of success going forward to being that one place where all of us meet each other at some point in the year and have these happy laughs and emotional cries on the millions of things that we do in our day-to-day lives. Thank you for running this machine and thank you for keeping us all together.
Thank you for the kind words. Definitely will meet in the future again in one of these events and make a fantastic experience for all of us.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you.
day.
And there you have another amazing female leader in football, Aisha, from the World Freestyle Football Association. This was a conversation that had everything that I expected it to have. We talked about technology, we talked about purpose, we talked about leadership. At the end of the day, this is the beauty of sport. No, it touches upon so many things. let me try to sum up the conversation, although it's going to be hard because Aisha started strong. Sport is where people connect, and it's the people that work in it that make it unique. So, I mean, isn't that a beautiful line to start with? And she also was speaking about technology and how its role has to be to enhance, not compete with the people in it, and eliminate the differences, whether it's among athletes or among the fans, to help them have similar experiences wherever you are in the world. And that's the beauty of football at the end of the day. One match can have impact across the entire world. And people around the world can have similar feelings, regardless of whether they are in the stadium or not, right? Another thing we talked about is how, the key is to combine physical and digital experiences in one, not have different realms. And that's going to help sport stand out versus other forms of entertainment and connect with the new generation of fans, right? Don't miss out on that review we did of Web3 with AI. And also, what we talked about purpose. I think she gave a masterclass on how football transcends just the sport itself. And I really like the way she framed it, which is, purpose and financial outcome leads to a good product. It's not just about social impact. You also need to be mindful of developing an experience that's profitable, that's sustainable from a financial point of view. And that cannot be forgotten. It's something also that Julie Ehrman from Angel FC talked about in one of our events, World Football Summit Europe, in one of the panels. They're building community, they have a strong sense of purpose, but at the end of the day, they know their business and they want to grow profitably for all the stakeholders that are involved in the club, right? And finally, what a great way to end the conversation with the way she defined the football she wants and needs. Football is for all. And I really like the way she said it. Football is where I feel home. And all of us here, I think we can attest to that. Football is a place where we feel home and where we have quote unquote family members that may not be our bloodline, but that we have deep connections with, right? Anyway, did anything else stand out to you? If so, make sure you reach out on social media. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe and read the podcast on your platform of choice and share it with your industry colleagues. It does help us a lot. Also, subscribe to our newsletter where every week we share updates, trends, dynamics, everything that's going on with our events. This year is going to be a busy one for World Football Summit. We have events in Mexico, we have events in Europe, in London, and more things to come. Anyway, thank you for tuning into this episode of the World Football Summit podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. I definitely did. I learned many new things today. And nothing else. Have a great rest of your day, and we hope to see you next time.